What's going on, everybody? It's the Old Weeb, and here to talk about what I think is the key difference in what makes isekais nowadays more enjoyable versus sufferable. And it's that, are the main characters leaders? And not just leaders of a small group, leaders of entire organizations and nations. Let's get into it. Now, we all know that we're currently going through a rough time in the anime world when it comes to how many isekais we keep getting. And I get it, it's definitely an oversaturated market. It's never to the level of shonen, because that genre of anime is just gonna be eternal. But isekais are kind of plaguing us for the last 12 years since Sword Art Online. But I think that the most iconic ones, and at least the best loved ones recently, outside of Makoku Tensei, I think are Reincarnated into a Slime, Eminence in Shadow, and Moonlit Fantasy. And what kind of separates these particular ones, not only because they're in the thumbnail, but another one who I wish I could have gotten in there, is Einzungon from Overload, is that they are all impactful leaders, not only to the organization, but their effects they have on the world. When it comes to these characters, I'll go one by one. Let's start with, I think, my favorite out of the bunch would be Sid Kagano from Eminence in Shadow. The man is a glorified theater kid who has the Batman complex, who spent his entire life preparing to be this Eminence in Shadow. And while, yes, he has massive meme potential, on top of badass moments like the iconic line he drops in episode 5. I think what makes him most interesting above all is the influence that he's had on his world through not his own means, but through the organization that he created out of his own playful and, LARPing mind. Given the dynamics and the elegancy and great characters that are in his Shadow Garden with Alpha, Delta, Beta, Clumsy Gamma, Zeta, Epsilon, the rest of the Greek alphabet who represents Shadow Garden's elite shadows, are so good at what they do. And the fact that Sid kind of has essentially rewritten the entire world through their efforts from his stories that he tells these girls that he had saved through his own mana manipulation. And it's funny how much of a leader he is without wanting to be a leader or recognizing that he is one sometimes. He just, again, believes that they're all just role-playing theater kids left unchecked. And he's such a great story character because, yes, he's OP. Of course he's OP. It's how isekais go. But his theatrics on top of the side effects that all of his actions have to the other characters, it what makes this so engaging of a story. Because, again, if your main character in your isekai happens to be OP, part of the regimen, but there's nothing really else to it, it's kind of like building with the weak, and they try to go through the motions of he's this strong, we don't believe him. That gets super boring. That's why we have so many of them, and I don't know how we have so many of them that are bad. But this, Eminence in Shadow, is one of the all-time greats because of not only is he funny, but the effects he has as a leader and organization he has affected the world has made the story even better. Now let's move on to his other contemporary in Rimuru Tempest. Now, Reincarnated into a Slime was probably one of my first ones in the wave of the new isekais. I mean, I did watch Sword Art, of course, but one where I was really entranced with the character was Rimuru because of kind of how much of a dork he is. As you know, he kind of is now my age compared to when he got first isekai compared when I first started watching it. And given that he has no actual concept of the rules of engagement and how to run a country, that by the end of season 1 he has his own nation, and from seasons 2 to seasons 3, watching him go through the political navigations of trying to maintain peace and trade are some of the most interesting parts. Maybe that's because I was a political science graduate. That could be me. But I think I enjoy that he is a menace. Don't get me wrong. Season 2, when he spun the block on the kingdom who killed almost a third of his population and Best Girl Shion, I was here for it. But I do like the fact that even though he's really busted as a demon lord, even before he was a demon lord, he doesn't settle everything with violence. He doesn't just go around saying, I can beat everyone, compared to some other characters. And I think that's what makes it most intriguing. And yes, a lot of people have complained with Season 3 that there was a lot of meetings, not a lot of action. But that's the thing. It's a world-building show. More importantly to the story is, what does Rimuru do? Seasons 1 and half of Season 2 was building up to the idea of what kind of character is Rimuru and the kind of leader he wants to be. And then the second half of Season 2 into Season 3 has shown us this, when also he was a teacher and he wanted to become more informed and that he's willing to learn. He's not ignorant to the world that he's living in and to the powers that be to help maintain peace, because yes, he probably knows in his heart, because I haven't read the light novels, but those who have will probably can correct me, how strong he is, and strong enough that if he really wants to flex his muscles, he could do so. But I think the fact that he's trying to play ball and be part of the world as opposed to take over the world is the most intriguing thing. Because I know we don't have a lot of isekais where the main character is kind of a villain, which would be very interesting to see. If you guys know any stories like that, please let me know in the comments. But when it comes to Rimuru's story, I enjoy the fact that he's not just about, I can beat everybody, I get to do whatever I want because I'm the main character. He's more like, no, I want to create an ideal world and like change the paradigm when it comes to monster races, because this was the first one in any of the isekais where the main character turned into a monster, because now we have all this nonsense of like spiders, swords, vending machine. I don't know how that got greenlit, I don't know why that's still here, but the point being is that Rimuru was one of the first ones to turn into a monster, if I'm not mistaken. Double check the years before Ainzungon, and I believe that that's the reason why he is the face of that particular side of the isekai genre. And I think that those who don't enjoy the meetings aspect into the world building, maybe it's just not for you. So let's get into the other guy here, and that's Makoto Mizuku from Moonlit Fantasy. Now, for those who haven't seen this, because this show is now on its finishing its season 2, it is about a main character who is the child of two former people from an isekai world who went to our world and had a child. And when he got isekai'd randomly, due to the fact that his parents apparently made a deal with the goddess of this world that they would give up the most precious thing in exchange for them being able to go to the other world, well, she took their son. But according to her, their son is ugly, and she can't believe that they created this child. So as a result, she didn't want him and didn't want to make him a hero. But what she said was, you know, I do owe your parents a favor, so I guess I'll give you this little thing. Gave him the ability to speak all languages but common, and threw him to the wayside into the monster world until he started befriending a bunch of, you know, monster races, despite him being a human. He started out with orcs, befriended a dragon, befriended some orcs, like the list goes on for other things that he befriended along the way. But the important aspect is that as a result of him conquering the strongest dragon that he's fought up to that point, along with a spider who loves power, he ends up becoming the leader of a demiplane and starts just assembling different monster races into this little subspace nation. I would highly recommend watching this show, and like again, the thing with Rimuru happened this season kind of happened with Moonlit Fantasy, in that there was a bit of slowness to the show because he became a teacher and was again going through the politics of being a merchant and working within the city. And again, he can't speak common, so he has to use like a little translator. And again, this main character is very strong, but he doesn't really believe in himself and understand his full capabilities compared to Rimuru. But seeing him go through all these hoops and ladders and kind of failing, and the political aspects of being a leader and failing as being a merchant because of his naivete, is so refreshing. Despite him being uber powerful, we almost know he's always going to win the fights, but I'm more interested in seeing the world building, and I think that's the key in how you're going to cultivate good isekais going forward. The leadership behind the main character has to be part of the story, otherwise I can watch any boring power fantasy show. And then, as I mentioned, and let's talk about Ainzungon from Overlords, and he is the most hilarious out of all of them, because he's also a theater kid similar to Sid, but he hasn't fully forgotten his part, where Sid believes that everything's make-believe, but Ainzougo knows this is all real now to all these characters because they were made from NPCs that he and his buddies made from this game that he used to play. So he has to play the part because that's what they expect. But him inside, he's still kind of, a kid or young adult who's just trying to make sure that no one finds out that he's not the real demon or lich that they all aspire him to be, which I think adds to how he's such a performer, and he goes out of his way to make sure people know that yes, he's evil for the sake of having to be evil. And through seeing his adventures from seasons 1, 2, and 3, can't wait for season 4. Again, the importance here throughout all these isekais is that with the bevy of ones we have to watch, if their main characters don't have more tangibleness to them outside their power, go for leadership. Go for making them sovereign leaders of nations, nation states, however you want, organizations, whatever you want to do. That's what will add to the charm of the show, because you already know that the main character is going to be OP. And from this season as well, there was Remonster, which I really enjoyed watching it all the way through, because not only was the main character funny, but he again was the leader of the goblins and the mercenaries they eventually grew into. That is the formula we need to go forward with isekais. Make them be great leaders above being just uber powerful. GG's.